The great illusion of modern poverty. I've spent my entire life studying wealth, not just how it's built, but how it's quietly destroyed. And after nearly a century of observing human behavior, I can tell you something with absolute certainty. Most people are not poor because they don't earn enough money. They're poor because they consistently buy the wrong things. That truth makes people uncomfortable because those wrong purchases don't look wrong at first. They look normal, familiar, socially approved. Everyone around you is buying them. Advertisements encourage them. Friends justify them. Society treats them as milestones of success. And for a brief moment, they even make you feel good. But beneath the surface, these purchases behave like termites. Silent, patient, relentless, they don't collapse your finances overnight. Instead, they eat away at your foundation year after year, until one day you wake up and realize that despite working hard for decades, there's nothing solid underneath you. This is why so many intelligent, highly educated people struggle financially. Doctors, engineers, lawyers, professionals with impressive incomes who spend their entire lives working and still retire stressed, dependent, or afraid. The problem was never their intelligence or effort. It was a pattern of spending that felt harmless, but was systematically draining their future. Over the years, through countless conversations and careful analysis, a clear pattern emerged. Wealth destruction doesn't happen randomly. It happens through a small number of recurring decisions, purchases that feel reasonable, even necessary, yet quietly sabotage long-term financial freedom. Today, we're going to expose 5 of those decisions. These are not minor indulgences. They are not about skipping coffee or denying yourself every pleasure. These are major, repeated expenses that can cost you hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, over the course of a lifetime. And the most dangerous part is this. Almost everyone makes these choices without thinking twice. If your goal is real wealth, not appearances, not status, but genuine financial independence, then these are the habits you must confront honestly. And we begin with the single most common and socially accepted wealth destroyer in the modern world, one that millions of people sign for every year without realizing what it truly costs them. Thing number 1. New cars, the silent wealth killer. The first and most destructive habit I see in modern society is the obsession with buying new cars. At this point, many people push back immediately. Everyone needs a car, they say. And they're right. Transportation is necessary. But the problem isn't cars themselves. It's the decision to buy them brand new, straight from the dealership, while convincing yourself it's a reasonable or even smart financial move. A new car is not an investment. It is one of the fastest depreciating assets you can buy. And yet millions of people walk into dealerships every year, inhale that new car smell, and unknowingly sign away a piece of their financial future. The math is brutal, even though it's rarely discussed. The moment a new car leaves the dealership, it loses between 10 and 20% of its value instantly. You haven't driven it home yet, and thousands of dollars are already gone. Over the next 5 years, that same vehicle will typically lose around 60% of its original value. A $40,000 car becomes a $16,000 car, simply for existing. But the damage doesn't stop there. Most people don't buy cars with cash, they finance them. Now you're not only losing money through depreciation, you're paying interest on something that is rapidly declining in value. You're borrowing money to lose money faster. Let's look at reality. A 5-year loan on a $40,000 car means monthly payments, interest costs, insurance premiums, maintenance and repairs, all stacked on top of an asset that keeps shrinking. At the end of the loan, you've paid far more than the car is worth. What makes this decision truly devastating is opportunity cost. That money didn't just disappear, it failed to grow. The thousands lost on depreciation and interest could have been invested, quietly compounding year after year into real wealth. And this isn't a one-time mistake. Most people repeat it every 5 to 7 years. Over a lifetime, this single habit alone can cost millions in lost financial opportunity. The wealthy understand something simple. A car is a tool, not a statement. It exists to move you from one place to another, nothing more. A used, reliable vehicle does that job just as effectively as a new one, without silently draining your future. And once you see that truth clearly, it becomes much easier to question the next normal purchase people are encouraged to make, one that traps even more money for even longer. Thing 2. Buying a house that's too expensive for your income. Once people convince themselves that a new car is normal, the next trap often feels even more justified: buying the most expensive house the bank is willing to approve. Home ownership itself isn't the problem. Owning a home can be a smart financial decision if it's done correctly. The real danger lies in stretching your finances to the absolute limit simply because a lender says you qualify. Banks don't approve loans based on what builds your wealth. They approve loans based on what maximizes their profits. When someone earning a solid income is told they can afford a much larger house, it feels like validation. Approval feels like permission. And so they assume that if the bank is willing to lend the money, it must be a responsible decision. In reality, it often becomes a financial anchor. The moment you buy a house that consumes too much of your income, your wealth-building ability collapses quietly. Monthly payments don't stop at the mortgage. Taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, utilities, and unexpected costs add up relentlessly. What looks manageable on paper slowly suffocates your cash flow in real life. This is how people become asset-rich but cash-poor. Their money is locked inside walls and roofs, inaccessible unless they sell or borrow even more. Meanwhile, there's nothing left to invest. No flexibility, no margin, no compounding working in their favor. The truly wealthy approach housing differently. They don't ask, "What's the biggest house I can buy?" They ask, "What's the smallest, most reasonable home that comfortably supports my life?" The difference between those two questions determines whether you build wealth or stall it. Keeping housing costs modest creates room for opportunity. It frees capital for investments, businesses, and long-term growth. Over decades, this difference compounds into staggering numbers, often far exceeding the appreciation of the house itself. A home should be a foundation, not a financial prison. It should support your life, not dictate it. When housing costs stay controlled, money remains flexible, mobile and productive, working for you instead of against you. And once your largest fixed expense is under control, the next category of spending begins to look far less innocent than it first appears, especially when it's disguised as comfort and style inside that very home. Thing number 3. New furniture and status-driven home decor. Once people stretch themselves to buy a house that pushes their finances to the limit, a new temptation appears almost immediately, filling that house with brand new furniture and decoration. At first, this doesn't feel dangerous at all. Furniture seems practical, necessary. You need a couch, a table, a bed, and yet this is exactly how the trap works. What begins as basic necessity quietly turns into a status project. Entire rooms are furnished in a single weekend. Styles are chosen to impress guests rather than serve function. And suddenly, tens of thousands of dollars disappear without much thought. The uncomfortable truth is simple. Furniture exists to be used, not admired. A sofa supports your body whether it's new or used. A dining table holds food just the same. A bed helps you sleep regardless of whether it came from a showroom or someone else's home. New furniture doesn't perform better, it only costs more. What makes this habit especially destructive is how quickly the expenses stack. A couch here, a dining set there, bedroom furniture, decorative items, lighting, rugs, wall art. None of them seem outrageous individually. Together, they quietly rival the cost of a car. And unlike investments, these items immediately lose value. Even worse, many people finance furniture. They pay interest on objects that depreciate, wear out, and eventually get replaced when styles change. It's a perfect example of short-term gratification sabotaging long-term freedom. Wealthy individuals rarely approach furnishing this way. They buy slowly, selectively, often second-hand. They prioritize durability over appearance and function over fashion. Their homes are comfortable, not theatrical. The difference isn't aesthetic, it's mathematical. Money not spent on unnecessary upgrades remains available to compound. Over decades, the gap between furnishing for status and furnishing for function grows enormous. And once you understand how even the inside of your home can quietly drain your future, it becomes much easier to question the next category, one designed to constantly make you feel outdated, behind, and in need of an upgrade. Thing number 4. Constantly upgrading technology and gadgets. After filling their homes with new furniture, many people fall into another quiet drain on wealth, the endless cycle of upgrading technology. This habit is especially dangerous because it feels productive. New devices promise efficiency, speed, and connection. A faster phone, a thinner laptop, a smarter television. Each upgrade seems small, reasonable, even justified. But over time, these small expenses form a powerful leak. Technology companies are masters of creating urgency. Every year new models appear, carefully designed to make the previous version feel obsolete, even when it works perfectly. And millions of people respond automatically, replacing devices not because they've stopped functioning, but because something newer exists. The financial damage rarely comes from a single purchase. It comes from repetition. A phone replaced every year instead of every 4. A laptop upgraded long before it's necessary. Multiple gadgets bought on impulse, each justified as a tool, convenience, or reward. What's rarely considered is opportunity cost. The money spent on frequent upgrades doesn't simply vanish, it loses the chance to grow. Small annual savings, when invested consistently, compound into extraordinary sums over decades. But when those dollars are spent chasing novelty, compounding never gets the chance to work. Wealthy individuals approach technology differently. They treat it as a tool, not an identity. Devices are kept until they are truly worn out or no longer functional. Older models are purchased at discounts. Repairs are favored over replacement. The goal isn't to keep up. It's to extract maximum value from every dollar spent. This mindset doesn't reject technology. It rejects waste. It understands that usefulness matters far more than newness. A device that performs its function reliably is already doing its job. Once you stop upgrading for status or fear of missing out, money begins to stay in your system longer. And when money stays, it compounds. And with that realization, one final category of spending remains, the most emotionally justified of all, and often the most financially destructive when done without restraint. Thing number 5. Luxury experiences you can't truly afford. After controlling physical possessions and technology, the final and most emotionally protected spending habit appears: luxury experiences. This is where many people stop listening because experiences feel different. They don't sit in your garage. They don't collect dust in your house. They come wrapped in phrases like, "You only live once and I'm making memories." And because of that, they're rarely questioned with the same discipline as material purchases. But the financial reality doesn't change just because the expense feels meaningful. Luxury travel, premium flights, 5-star hotels, high-end restaurants, VIP events, and expensive cruises are often purchased long before they're affordable. Not with surplus money, but with future money. Credit cards absorb the cost quietly, while the experience itself ends quickly. The danger lies in the imbalance. A week of luxury may cost what could have funded years of investment growth. And unlike assets, experiences don't compound, they fade. What remains is the bill and the wealth that never had a chance to exist. This doesn't mean experiences are wrong, it means timing matters. There is a massive difference between enjoying life within your means and borrowing against your future for temporary pleasure. Many people reverse that order. They consume first and hope wealth will somehow catch up later. Social pressure amplifies the problem. Online images create the illusion that everyone else is constantly traveling, upgrading, and celebrating. Comparison replaces planning. Emotion overrides math. And suddenly, experiences become obligations instead of choices. Wealthy individuals view experiences through a different lens. They ask a simple question: can I pay for this in cash without compromising my long-term goals? If the answer is no, they wait. They adapt. They choose simpler alternatives. And often, those alternatives create deeper memories because they are rooted in presence, not price. The true cost of luxury experiences isn't just the money spent. It's the future freedom sacrificed. It's the years of choice, flexibility, and peace that never materialize because the capital was consumed too early. When experiences are aligned with financial reality, they enrich life. When they're not, they quietly delay independence. And once this final illusion is exposed, the broader pattern becomes impossible to ignore. These 5 habits don't destroy wealth loudly. They destroy it politely, gradually, and with social approval. The hidden cost of social approval. Once you step back and look at these 5 spending habits together, a deeper pattern becomes impossible to ignore. None of them are random. None of them are accidents. They are driven by one powerful force: the desire for social approval. Most people don't buy new cars, expensive homes, upgraded gadgets, or luxury experiences because they truly need them. They buy them because those choices are rewarded by society. They signal success. They blend in. They protect you from judgment. And for many, that protection feels safer than financial discipline. Living below your means often comes with an emotional cost. People may question your choices. They may assume you're struggling. They may label you as cheap, outdated, or overly cautious. What they don't see is the quiet strength behind those decisions. Choosing not to spend is rarely praised. It doesn't generate admiration or applause. In fact, it often invites misunderstanding. But beneath that surface discomfort lies something far more valuable: control. Every dollar you don't spend on appearances remains available for opportunity. It stays flexible. It stays alive. And over time, it begins to work harder for you than approval ever could. This is where most people get stuck. They trade long-term freedom for short-term validation. They sacrifice independence to avoid standing out. And because everyone around them is doing the same thing, it feels normal, even responsible. But wealth has never been built by following the crowd. True financial progress often looks boring from the outside. Modest choices, repetition, restraint, patience, the absence of visible upgrades. And yet, these quiet decisions create momentum that compounds silently. The question is simple but uncomfortable. Whose opinion matters more? People who are also trapped in the same cycle, or your future self? Once you stop spending to be seen, money stops leaking. And when that happens, a final shift becomes possible, one that transforms discipline into freedom and restraint into a life lived on your own terms. The simple formula for real wealth. When you strip everything down, the formula for building real wealth is surprisingly simple, though not easy. It has very little to do with earning more money. In fact, many high earners never become wealthy at all. They simply spend faster. True wealth is built by removing what quietly drains your resources and redirecting that money toward assets that grow over time. The 5 habits we've discussed don't look dangerous because they're socially accepted. They're marketed as success. They're normalized by repetition. And because everyone around you participates, opting out can feel uncomfortable. But comfort is expensive. Freedom is earned. Choosing not to buy what others buy requires discipline. It requires patience. And above all, it requires the courage to delay gratification while others chase it. But that discipline compounds, just like money does. Each decision you don't make impulsively creates space. Space for investing, space for opportunity, space for choice. Over years and decades, those small, boring decisions quietly transform into independence. The ability to live life on your own terms, without anxiety, without dependence, without fear. This is the part most people miss. Wealth isn't about luxury. It's about control. Control over your time, control over your options, control over your future. And once you experience that kind of freedom, the desire for status symbols fades quickly. You stop trying to look rich. You start becoming free. The path won't impress everyone. It may even confuse some people. But the rewards aren't visible on social media. They're felt in peace of mind, flexibility, and security. So stop buying what quietly destroys your future. Start investing in what compounds it. Live below your means, be patient, be consistent, and let time do the heavy lifting. It worked extraordinarily well for me, and if you're willing to choose freedom over approval, it can work just as well for you.